much. My name is Gerry, Secretary of the Department of Transportation District 4. That's the geographic regions, Broward, Palm Beach, Martin, St. Lucie, and Indian River counties. We're sitting in District 6, which is Miami-Dade and South. So I'm here to give you a brief update on the Tri-Rail Coastal Link project. So, quick overview of the actual urban core, why we're doing this project. It's, if you look at an area, the study area was from the Tri-Rail line today to the beach. Is that here? No, to the beach. It's the densest urban corridor in Florida. Its economic core is over 1 million jobs, 1.6 million people, and multiple airports, seaports. It's the region's transportation core. There's 3 million daily trips in that area, 17% of the entire trips for the 3 county areas. In general, all the highways in that area are at or over capacity, and trips continue to grow. So there's a need for some type of relief in that corridor. This project has a long history, not quite as old as the map, but approaching it. It's interesting to see it's a colour map, which is good. So we started this back in 2004. It's been a long, long process, 85 miles long. I'm not aware of any other study that our District 6 has been involved in that's that length. We rarely study things that long. It's stretched out a long time. But you can see there the key dates in what's happened when. 2012, FECI announced all of our Florida service. That did alter things. 2012, we developed an MOU to speak to how the project will be managed, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. What is the project? Well, it's 85 miles long, stretching from Jupiter down into Miami. Proposed to be 25 new stations for further evaluation, possibly start with 20 and then infill stations, but that's not fully determined yet. Shared tracks with FEC Freight and all of our Florida, the Brightline passenger service. There's co-located stations with all of Florida in Miami, and proposed to be in Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach. There's an envelope reserved in those stations for platforms for this, and a space for the trains to pull in. Some type of phased project implementation is most likely based on the availability of local matching funds and ability to pay the operator. The overall project is governed by an MOU signed by the partners. So, for those of you not familiar with the project, this red line is Tri-Rail today, and it comes straight down into Miami Station. Jack will come up here, Stevens will come up and explain how that train will split and go to Miami, so he'll talk about that as an interim. But the plan involves building a crossover right here in Pompano. So you can have a service from Palm Beach, crossover, and then through the downtown areas all the way down to Miami. And you can, again, extend to the north and serve Jupiter, and then continue to serve the airport. So the service could serve all those areas. So how is the project being governed and proposed to be run? So this isn't meant to be an over-complex drawing, but it probably looks like an over-complex drawing. The DOT, the RTA, the 2 regional planning councils, and the 3 MPOs signed an MOU to talk about who would do what as we lead this project forward. And the main thing would be FDOT is the manager of the project through these planning phases, project development phases. Where we are in the time frame of this right now is around this line here. So the next things that have to happen for this project to keep on going are things like the finance plan, where the money is going to come from. We have to get through project development. When you start that, you have to finish it within 2 years. That's one of the federal requirements. And then the MPOs take various actions each step along the way. The project hasn't started project development yet. It's on hold, so to speak, at least on hold for moving into project development. We're still doing some work along the corridor. We've fully funded project development, so it's fully funded the actual study, not the construction of the study. There's enough environmental work that's been done to ensure that once it starts, it can be finished in 18 to 24 months. And at the moment, the financial plan is on hold. SO48 has been working on that. So what has to happen to complete the project development within 2 years? So this is a fancy little thing, I guess, a graphic. It's not meant to signify anything other than it's the FDOT, the RTA, and the locals working together to move the project, because each has a part to play. DOT's part will be the environmental analysis, the documentation, ridership forecasts, and any cost estimates needed for construction or the maintenance. The MOU, as it's currently written, says that the finance plan would be developed. It doesn't mean the RTA is paying for anything, it means they develop the finance plan, are responsible for pulling together the locals and where the money will come from. And there's three main things you need to cover with money: where the capital will come from, and it's likely that'll be some split of federal money, state money, and local monies. The operations and maintenance costs to actually run the service will be local funds. And then there has to be a track access fee, because several of the routes run on the FEC lines and they're privately held, so you've got to pay to get access to them. And then the MPO's role, and they have to ultimately select the local preferred alternative. And a really important part is include the project in a cost feasible plan. When you know where's the construction money coming from, where's the operating money coming from, put it in that cost feasible plan. So what type of costs are we talking about? Our last costs we updated were around 2013 timeframe. So we're looking at around $800 million for capital. O&M somewhere between 38 and 43 million. And a track access fee that was unknown, or still is unknown, I guess. When this estimate was developed, all of our Florida existed, was underway, they were starting their planning. So there was some recognition of improvements all of our Florida would make, and there was some recognition that all of our Florida would be on the line, so that you had to make more improvements to be able to fit on the corridor. But these would need to be updated as soon as all of our Florida's work is finished and we see exactly what's being built where, so that you can layer on top of it the number of trains that are going to provide this service to make sure you have all the infrastructure you need. But they were the last estimates we had. And then this is just to break down what you're seeing in each county and what the lengths are and the approximate number of stations in each county. And you can see as you go from the more urban to the slightly less urban, the station spacing spreads out a little bit. So what needs to be addressed to advance into project development? Well, we've got to get a finance plan and an identification of where the money is going to come from to operate the trains. Track access agreements have to be worked out with the FEC. How much will that cost? What form will it take? And who's paying the money? That has to get worked out. To run passenger trains on the FEC, you have to be able to indemnify FEC, and that's an issue that has to get resolved before passenger trains can run on the FEC. It's an issue that has been resolved temporarily. Jack will probably talk to that now, but for this type of service it needs to be resolved, and it's likely through legislation, which would have to happen in the coming years. And then the region needs to decide how they want to approach this project. It's been approached as a long 85-mile project, but as we get into project development, if they're going to take segments and advance those first, how that's going to be done. So some decisions have to be made on that. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, we've got a question. Is it on there, sir?
There it is. I liked everything you said. There is great lively interest in Dade County, Miami-Dade, in getting our segment done, ASAP. In fact, I will be spreading on the record, and I gave to our executive director of our MPO a memorandum, and here's what it says in part as to the coastal link as it goes through Miami-Dade. And I quote because sometimes it's better to read things that you've thought about for a long time. In the case of the Northeast Corridor, whose principal guideway is already under construction by a private entity, FECI, as part of its overboard system, a small amount of track will be needed for the commuter train known as Coastal Link. I believe it's 2.5 miles is the latest estimate that we've been given. Current estimates are in the range of $30 million for those 2.5 miles. There'll be some other bypasses, signaling, infrastructure, but it'll be minimal. And then I say, which the state of Florida can easily afford. And I mean that. I mean, to get connection from downtown Miami to Aventura and then into Broward, it is such a high priority that, you know, we just need to do it. Let me add this. As in other aspects of our transportation system in Dade County, our smart plan, I don't think, in terms of all these infrastructure costs, all the terminal stations, you know, and train stops. I think only of laying down a track and then letting the cities pick up from that moment forward and letting our administrators figure out the rolling stock that we use. And in connection with the stops, let me say this, as to downtown to Aventura, and I hope that Broward uses the same system if it makes sense for you. I have talked to the mayors of all of the cities along that track. They all have cities, thank God. It's not like it's an unincorporated area of the county. And all 4 mayors, beginning with Regalado, with 3 stops contemplated in the city of Miami. The mayor of North Miami, Mayor Joseph, mayor of North Miami Beach, George Vallejo, and Mayor Ines Ayman in Aventura. They have all said, yes, of course we'll build our own stations. So it is key not to let our administrators, with all due respect, the equivalent, think, you know, air-conditioned shelters, all of these highfalutin things. I mean, we're thinking of a train very much like what you see in New Orleans, in Boston, with a little pedestal where you get off, you know, that hopefully will be a little shelter there. But the most important thing is to connect that part of the system. And if you see a lot of energy on our part, and you experience that, it is my hope that everyone will sign into this, and that we can get our part of it done before Broward beats us to the punch.
Commissioner Furr?
Thank you. And just to piggyback on this a little bit, I have a couple questions real quick, if that's okay. I see that it's on hold, but can you tell us why it's on hold?
It's on hold until we get those issues resolved. So if I go back a couple of slides. There has to be a finance plan about how you move forward. We can't start. If we enter project development, we get 2 years to finish it. It has to be finished, well, probably 12 months into it, I think, on our schedule. We have to have a finance plan worked out. So we've got to know, where is the money coming from to operate the train?
Okay.
It has to be ready to go into the MPO's cost feasible plan. So really, from a local perspective, it's the operating funds to run it, whatever segment it is, and it's the access fee to be allowed to be on that corridor.
To that extent, we are, as I'm sure you know, we are in the middle of a penny sales tax campaign to find funding precisely for this. But there's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing happening here, because it's hard for us to sell to the public that we are on board with this when we don't know where you all are. Because we want to be able to put this front and center and say, this is a big part of our campaign to make this happen. And passing this penny sales tax is a big part of that. But we're having a hard time being able to say that because it's not moving on the other side. So we need some kind of an opening that we're able to say that. Part of that, and I know part of that has to do with the access fee. And I'm wondering, and I know Dave is in the middle of trying to negotiate access fees. Isn't there a way that we can negotiate all the access fees together? If Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach tried to do that together, can we do that?
I'm sure there is. The issue is what groups you put together. Somebody has to take the lead in that. Somebody has to take the lead in a finance plan that can cover the operating costs. The capital is more likely to be able to work itself out. But the operating costs of the access fee, you have to decide how you want to approach it. Are you approaching it as a service to Aventura, a service to Fort Lauderdale, are you going to extend to Jupiter, and where will that money come from? Somebody has to take the lead in that. Right now, the way we had structured the project, it was set up with SFRTA and that lead role. But, and I don't know, Jack will be up here to talk for himself, I don't know the way you're progressing right now. If Miami's looking at a piece on their own, they're going to come up with the money. Maybe that's the answer. Or if Broward is thinking they'll join with Miami-Dade. But somebody needs to do it. And then ultimately, the concept of an access fee and how much it is, and whether it's how you'll pay it, where the money's going to come from. We need to see all those things being worked on and start getting put in place.
Okay. So let me just backtrack for a minute. If our penny sales tax passes, are we able to say that this project is then not on hold? Can I make that connection?
I don't think you can. I think you need to make a connection between the estimated cost of the access fee is this, the estimated cost of operating is this, and here's where the money is programmed.
So let's say if we were able to, if it passes and we were able to say we dedicate such and such amount to this, then can it go on hold? I'm going to keep trying to find out how I get this on hold.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, and then Miami-Dade saying the same thing, where that source of money is.
So you need to know the exact dedicated source before it can come off hold.
Yeah.
And only the O&M?
Well, I listed a few things here. The O&M, the track access fee, and the liability issue has to get resolved. And that will take a legislative change, but I expect that will start happening.
And are you all working on the legislative?
DOT is not working on it. Jack will be up here in a little bit, he can talk to it. We should have stood up here together, Jack.
Yeah. Come on up there. And lastly, is there a methodology to determining where the stops are going to be, where the station stops, and the distance between, and those kind of things? Because I think we're right. Every city that I know is having to build their station. But we need to know if there's a methodology and a distance between stops that is required.
Yes, there is a methodology, and an awful lot of work has been done on this already. We started at probably 50 or 60 locations. You've got to look at the ridership, you've got to look at where people are actually coming from, the distance to their jobs, etc. That got narrowed down, and we said we would move 25 stations into the project development phase with the thought process that there might be about 20 at start. And then you would infill stations. But we were going to study in detail 25 locations. Yes, I'm sure cities would want to participate, so when you put together a financial plan, you can say the costs. But the stations, I would say, aren't cast in stone because that's part of what gets studied at the next phase. But there's been extensive work done on it. Just because somebody says, I'll build you a station, it doesn't work very well if there's no ridership. And it can't help support you getting federal funds to build it. So it's a little bit of both. And a lot of that work has been done, but it needs to be finished.
Okay. And lastly, was the Fort Lauderdale Airport included in one of those stops?
Yes.
Considered? Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Couple of things, Mr. Director. On the indemnification issue, I want you to know that we're already sending out emails to our legislators to try to get that done in the next session, 2017. We happen to have all the senators in the state of Florida running for re-election after redistricting. So, and of course, all the representatives running for re-election by the nature of the beast. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, Commissioner. On the track access fees, I wouldn't worry too much about that either. Let me remind everyone here what happened about 4 years ago when I got very upset with the South Florida Regional Planning Council staff. FECI negotiated 35 miles from Cocoa Beach to Orlando, and they told me that that had not been, clarified to us before they make the deal. And I said, well, how much is the track access fee? Actually, it's the entire right-of-way access fee, which I presume was 100 feet. They said, well, it's $250,000. And I said, $250,000 a day? They said, no, $250,000 a year. Okay, so using those comparables, it'll be minimal for Dade County. One last thing. Now, obviously, the land up there is presumably worth less than here, but all we're doing is asking for a little bit of time and space on the rail. There's one other factor, folks. In case, and I know Francois is not going to want me to say this, but I have to say it, in case the rest of all the board gets delayed by litigation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, how about if we do Coastal Link first? Okay? And that is the portion, that is the element, the component of the system that is really needed by the people of Miami-Dade County. So they'll get every kind of support to get their federal funding and everything else that they need. But we need to do Coastal Link. And I think if Broward and Dade get together in Palm Beach, we can get this thing done very, very quickly. And the final thing on ridership. Folks, ridership depends on the number and the frequency of the vehicles and the fare. And what's the alternative? The alternative is I-95. If you make the fare what I would like it to be, which is what Chairman Keenan Hardeman made the fare on Tri-Rail, much to the dismay of Jack. Okay, for all Overtown residents, how much is it, Jack, that they're going to be paying?
Those that meet the criteria.
Why don't you come up?
Zero. Okay, folks, did you hear that? They're not going to be paying anything. Okay, so the fare should be as close to zero as possible in Broward and Dade, and the cost is minimal. They're building the track, for the most part. In Dade, it's only 2.5 miles that we need to build, and that's minimal, and the signaling and everything else. And of course, we got Jack to run the whole system.
Thanks.
Thank you. Jack, you want to come up? I just want to recognize our Secretary for District 6, Mr. Wolf is here. James?